This is Terry Manning. I am the Technology Coordinator for the Department of Journalism and Mass Communications at Savannah State University. This is a quick tutorial on adding published stories from the web into Chalk and Wire. Specifically, this is regarding our tigersroar.com website. Unfortunately, it's only geared toward Macintosh users. You can follow the process if you have a Windows computer. You can follow the process. The process is the same, but the tutorial and the controls mentioned are geared toward people who use MacBooks or Macintosh desktop computers. First and foremost, when you go to the site, make sure your window is large enough that the navigation buttons on the website don't overlap content that you're going to need. Even if they don't pop out when you mouse over, you don't want these controls to overlap with your headline, a photo, or your story. So you don't have to go full screen, but you need to use a wide enough screen that the navigation controls don't overlap your content. You're going to take this article, and break it down into pieces that you can use in Photoshop. And since you're on a Mac, the easiest control to call up is the snipping tool. So it's sort of a Shift Command 4. You'll see the crosshairs pop up, and all you want to do is just highlight the content, specifically the content that you want. Keep your clips tight. This will help you when you go into Photoshop, as I'll show you in just a moment. That's the first one. Let's take the photo in case we need it. I don't believe we will for these purposes, but just in case, you never know. It's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. And let's get the top couple of paragraphs of the story. And you'll see the benefit of keeping these tight once we get into Photoshop again, but let's find those screenshots where we finished. I believe they're in the Documents folder. And let's copy those screenshots and put them into a folder. You can name it whatever, as long as you're able to keep track of where the files are that you've created from this screen. Okay, so when you open the clippings.psd file in Photoshop, and PSD, all it stands for is Photoshop Document. If you're ever hanging around a bunch of graphic nerds and you guys want to bet what PSD stands for, it's nothing fancy. Photoshop Document. But anyway, when you open the clippings.psd file, two things I recommend. One, go to the top of the window, and the workspace you want is Graphic and Web. Also, you want to make sure that Show Transform Controls is selected. It helps you immeasurably when you're working on the file. One good example is here on the bottom right, where somebody has created a sample file for you. Not me, but someone else was very gracious and created this just sort of to guide you on how to put your clipping together. But you'll see that it's done in layers. And as I click on each layer down here in the layers window, and if you don't see layers, go into Window and select Layers. It should come up by default, but if it doesn't, that's where you find it. But as I select the different layers, I can see that each layer corresponds to a different piece of this. If I don't have on Show Transform Controls, I can click on the different layers and I see nothing over here to tell me what I'm selecting. So unless I've named these files in a particular way so I know, or unless these little preview images are large enough for me to see, I'm going to be lost. So Show Transform Controls, and you're going to replace these pieces with your own. Again, this is why doing the screenshots in pieces is so helpful versus doing an overall screenshot. So I want to get rid of this story. All I have to do is select this layer and drag it down to the trash can. I want to get rid of this headline. I know that it's the headline because the controls are highlighted. When I select that layer, grab this layer, hold the mouse down and drag it to the trash can. And now I want to replace this with the files that I created. So I'm going to go to File, place embedded because I want to include a copy of my the file when I get ready to export this, or if I have to do anything else with it. And I want to browse down to, first I created a work folder for all my little screenshots so I can keep track of where things are as I'm working. I don't like struggling trying to find things. You may see this option selected, and it's not the most helpful because all you see is screenshot and the timestamp. But you can go to icons if it'll help you see a little bit better. In this particular case, I don't mind either way because I know when I captured the things in which order. So I know this is my headline and I'm going to place it. And you can grab the bottom right corner and bring it in just a little, and the bottom left corner and click, hold the mouse down and bring it in just a little. This has my headline, my byline, and my date of publication. Double click and it's placed. And I also now want to place the portion of the story that I did a screenshot for. Again, place embedded. That was the last thing I took a screenshot for. Let's put this down here. Again, grab the controls. You can grab any corner and size it down. Again, you don't have to worry about having the entire story. And in this particular case, it looks weird because the headline is a double-decker. But just align everything. You see how that purple line pops up? That way I know that it's aligned center. Double click. And I can do the same thing with the headline. When that purple line pops up in the middle, that lets me know it's aligned center. So this is going to be the clipping that goes into Chalk and Wire. What I want to do is go to File. You can export this in a couple of different ways. You can export as a PNG file. You can save as to a JPEG. In this particular case, I'm just going to do a quick export as PNG. Name it something so you'll know what it is. TR. There's nothing worse than having a folder full of files that you've created that you don't know what they are without having to go back into each one individually and seeing what it is. So we're going to click Save here. Also, you have the option of doing Save As. Save on your computer. Select JPEG. Don't worry about this. This is fine. We're just going to call it TR. We're going to give it the same name, but it's just going to be a JPEG file. Okay, and save. 10 is fine. 10 is fine. In terms of quality, 10 is fine. And you are done with this portion of the tutorial. Okay, once you have logged into Chalk and Wire, this process should be fairly familiar at this point. This is just adding an image into Chalk and Wire and putting that image on your portfolio. So when you log in, this is the default screen that you see. Go to Menu, Work, File Library, Images, because we're uploading images. Let's go to Upload Files. Choose the files that we want to upload. Let's add the JPEG version of the file that we created, our Tiger's Roar story. You see the check mark? That's a good sign. Done. Now let's go back out to the main menu, Dashboard, and you should see your portfolio listed here. If not, you can just click on Portfolios, but I prefer to just stick with the main one. So let's go here to your portfolio page. You need to add content. As always, text block. And because we're inserting content under published written clips, we do the insert content button below the header. Library image, images, and we know which one we want because we've named it properly. Click and drag. Done. Once it's on the page, go to your tools and look at the source code. And by default, the width of the image is 2100 pixels. We don't want that. We just want it to be 100%. Okay. Save. And we see the confirmation here. And then below that, let's put in a little bit of information. If you see the cursor flashing over here, just hit return. And here you just want to say what you actually did for the story. I interviewed 2 administrators and took a photo for this story. So now you want to highlight this particular word, and this is where we're going to link back to the story we did initially. So let's click Insert Edit Link and tab over here to where the story actually is on the Tigers Row website. Select that URL, copy it, then go back into Chalk and Wire, target. You can leave it none. I prefer new window. That's your choice. But there we go. Save. Confirmation. Close. Okay, great. And now let's go to preview to see what it looks like. Portfolio. Publish clip. And interviews. Bad typing. But you'll see the story. You see the headline. You see the clipping. And fix that verb. But interviewed 2 administrators, 3 students who took a photo for this story, and people will be able to see the link to the actual story.